All right, we're back. It looks like we are live. I'm getting a. All right, so this is the panel on the Kentucky Blockchain Alliance. It's been a long day. I'm at the end of the day here. So first thing, last panel of the day.
There we go.
All right. So we came up here with our drink, which is somewhat of a mint julep. And these guys have never had a mint julep before, well, the right way, and he's trying to drink it the wrong way.
See,
So I've gone to track since I was 10 years old and probably had my mint julep lessons somewhere around that time. And the right way to drink a mint julep is to take the straw, crush the mint down at the bottom to get it stirred up.
Okay.
There's some built out of powdered sugar, some's got the, anyway. Then you use the mint at the bottom as a filter to drink the drink.
Okay.
And when you get the powdered sugar and the sugar and the mint, it's candy.
Yeah.
And now, before we drink, we asked if you wanted a mint julep.
Well, I got a special mint julep, so it just doesn't have any mint and it doesn't have any sugar and no ice. but other than that, all right, cheers.
So cheers. All right. So this is kind of the inaugural Kentucky Blockchain Alliance kind of talk.
Oh,
so,
goodness.
Cheers.
I don't know, this
We're the view now. All right.
could get
So,
dangerous.
Tim, you started this monster, so we'll let you.
Well, I don't know how much, it's kind of funny because we, I don't want to take too much credit or presume too much of anything at this point because we still haven't quite even got this group totally formed and we haven't had our first, meeting and we need to.
It's a
do that.
concept at this point
It's still a
that
concept.
we're bringing to fruition.
But we have a lot of people, like I mentioned this morning, we started off having some of these early discussion calls and, the three of us and the 4 or 5 other people, and then it grew to 15 people, and then the next thing you know, I was getting calls like 60 people want to get on the next call. I said, wait a minute, we have to kind of put a cap on this so we don't, we're not going to get anywhere if we have 60 people on a conference call trying to form a trade association. So we're at the point now where we're just getting ready to kind of get it formed and then have some elections and then we'll kind of hopefully open it up and hopefully that interest is there.
But the purpose, what is the purpose? What's your idea of the purpose for this?
So again, I think, once we get it formed, we'll let everybody kind of tweak on that. But in my mind, I think it's, we're trying to promote the use of crypto assets, cryptocurrencies, all the kind of stuff, and the underlying technologies, blockchains and other related technologies, smart contracts, all that kind of stuff. For business use, personal use, potentially government use, make things better, across the board. So that's the idea. And then we just do the education and the advocacy around that and to kind of support that mission.
So can we say that this is to make Kentucky a crypto-friendly state so we can bring in all the crypto technology,
absolutely,
crypto entrepreneurs, bring all of that high-end energy, that high-end technology into Kentucky, to bring all those jobs into Kentucky, and be friendly. Like Wyoming, I know 5, 6 different startups that are moving directly there because they're already crypto-friendly. They're put down the laws, and that's really all we want is to take it from the Wild West.
That's the idea.
Let me introduce everybody. Everybody go down the line. I'm the world's worst at this.
I'm Drew Taylor. I'm from, in case you couldn't guess, I'm from Texas. Little town northwest of San Antonio called Kerrville. And started the Wild West Crypto Show. And what these guys are doing, first, I got to give these guys a round of applause, okay? Y'all do that. Let me tell you something. To step off into an abyss and take the chance that you guys have taken in doing this, it's how this country was founded and everything else, and I hand it to them. And I decided to do that in the radio space. Everybody asks, are you guys a podcast? Well, yes, we do upload to iTunes and Google Play and all that mess. But we're also a broadcast radio show on the 2nd largest AM station in the state of Texas. And so, we have an audience of about 50,000 folks, and the reason I wanted to do that, everybody in here is a crypto lover. We've got to reach everybody that doesn't know anything about it.
Amen.
And so how do you do that? You get out into where they're sitting and they're listening to this. So started the Wild West Crypto Show, and quite frankly, things are going phenomenal with it. And just actually, while I was over there working, we're going to have our first syndication in Arizona. So we'll grow this thing like you guys are doing, and I hand it to what y'all are doing. Let me tell you, I have another thought on this, and I can talk forever, but I will tell you, I see cryptocurrencies and what Wyoming's doing and what you guys are doing here. We're going to take back some of all this money-centric stuff on the East and West Coast, and we'll bring it back to Middle America as a result of efforts like this. I mean, that's a huge deal. So that's what I'm doing.
Enrique, if you wanted to, step up. You haven't had your talk yet.
Yeah, no. I'm tomorrow. My name's Enrique Rodriquez. I am an entrepreneur and founder of Crypto Consulting Group. We're a startup here in Louisville, Kentucky, and we're providing effective education tools to help people really navigate the space confidently. We do private consulting for individual investors and businesses looking to improve efficiency or use ICOs for crowdfunding, and then we also have educational events here in the city that we really just use to engage the communities and just help create educated crypto communities. So that's what we do. We go by CCG. Skylar talked a little bit earlier, and we're also part of the founding team of the KBA. And what we really want to do, as a part of the KBA is, I'm 23 years old, and I started learning about crypto and blockchain technology at a very young age, and it really influenced a lot of really my direction on what I wanted to do in life. I really was a period of enlightenment where I really found and really fell in love with a lot of the things that make crypto, the economics of it and the community and all these different things. And I know what I really want to do with the KBA is just help get into different schools and really help influence the younger people that really want to figure this stuff out, because, in the end, it is going to be the young people and the younger generations that really build, the world of tomorrow. And so, yeah.
So along those lines, we were just talking earlier, and I don't know how much you can say at this point, but you might talk about the deals with the U of L and the University of Louisville.
Yeah. So we actually just got approved for a recognized student organization at the University of Louisville. And so in this fall, we're going to be launching off, and over the course of the semester, we're going to be providing these students with educational tools and resources to help them understand the technology, everything from how blockchain works to how ICOs work. And at the end of the semester, we're going to be having an ICO pitch competition for these students to engage and learn and craft their own ICOs and pitch these to different companies around Louisville that we're going to invite in and make the prize different scholarships so that these students can go after different scholarships and opportunities within the crypto space. And so we just got that set up, and then also just got approved for an accredited internship program at the Indiana University Southeast. And so we'll be able to help students that are really trying to figure this space out, just learn more about the space and be able to, articulate on a lot of the things that are going on and just help, educate the community abroad. So a lot of interesting things going on, but we're very young, started last May in 2017, but the growth has been really great, especially here recently, as the space has been maturing. So it's been great.
Fun stuff.
Good.
So,
Yeah,
Drew?
let me tell you something you're going to hear us talk a whole lot about is regulation. And unlike things that have happened in the past in this country, the U.S. isn't really leading the charge here. No, they're going to try to muscle through and strong arm and do things across the globe in cryptocurrencies. They're already doing it. But the reality is, if you look across Europe and other parts of the country, other parts of the world, they're not caring a whole lot what the U.S. says. They're running out there kind of doing things themselves, and part of it is dollar is the world's reserve currency. And that pisses a lot of people off. And so they see this as an opportunity to level the playing field some. So one of the things that we do, and my partner who y'all meet tomorrow on the radio show, he was a securities trader for 25 years, and he got tired of the inner workings of, he calls it legislated monopolies, which is what we have in this country. Mm-hmm. Everybody that's involved in cryptocurrencies right now, and now you've got to go and do the KYCs and other things. We're not necessarily opposed to that because they're trying to supposedly protect the little guy. But the reality is they're screwing the little guy, because right now, if a guy like Enrique, who's 22, 23 years old, if he could put $100 into a pre-ICO, no telling where that money could go. okay? But the government won't let them do it now because they're protecting Enrique and all
Right.
these young folks.
Right.
It isn't true, folks. I mean, what it is it's keeping, the banks don't like it, the big regulators don't like it, JP Morgan Chase doesn't like it. Those are the folks that are pushing the legislators to do this. So what we are doing, I'm actually on advisors on 2 task forces that are preemptively going in, and we are going to propose and work with SEC to hopefully come up with some kind of smart regulation. Regulation altogether isn't bad. We have to have speed limits on the highway. That's not a bad deal. But what they're going to do is all these idiots up there in Washington, and I know this is, let me tell you, they are a bunch of idiots in Washington. Let me tell you, a bunch of those folks.
Can neither confirm nor deny.
The reality is they know
Wasn't
very
talking
little.
about you, Bruce.
They know very little about this space. And so what they're going to do is they're going to come in and just build a dam to stop whatever they can if we are not proactive in the things that we do to make sure that when regulation comes in, it does make sense. And it is smart regulation. I mean, we don't want people investing their house payment in cryptocurrencies. None of us want that. But man, to go and tell somebody that you take $100 that you went out and mowed lawns for and you can't invest in this, in the IPO market, which we're all familiar with, who makes all the money? It's the friends and family rounds, you know?
Well, just to actually accent exactly what you're talking about, we have a mutual friend that Mr. Totten tipped as a waiter some Bitcoin a few years back.
Right.
And that boy went all in. And if I understand things correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, he liquidated roughly $300,000, over 3 years maybe, liquidated $300,000 worth of crypto, bought himself a house for cash, retired at 22, and has a insanely sized crypto wallet. I think it was something to do with Tim Totten tipping him in Bitcoin. So Tim, if you want to talk
I'll just tell the story real quickly. And by the way, if Enrique wanted to take that $100 and go across the river to the casino and bet it all on number 14, nobody's going to stop him from doing that. But he can't invest in one of your all's, brilliant ICOs. I don't. It doesn't make any sense. But so Jacob, I was over there and I played some poker on that side of the river, and he was working as a server at one of the restaurants there at the casino, and I was wearing one of my Bitcoin T-shirts. I think it's one of them that says "I accept Bitcoin" or something like that. So he comes running up to me, "Hey, I accept Bitcoin too." It's like, okay, cool. Well, he just happened to end up being my server, right? So after the dinner, I say, "Hey, bring me your wallet." He comes over and shows me a QR code, and I sent him some crypto, and then. Yeah, now that's probably $1,000 tip or something now. But,
Yeah.
it was pretty good. So,
But as a really young waiter in Indiana, he went all in on cryptocurrency just 3 years ago, and now he's retired at 22.
yeah.
You bet. And the thing is, and we all know this, but we have to educate everybody else on it, and that is, when they talk about protecting us, they're trying to protect us from the pre-ICO and the early opportunity where you get the 5X, 10X, 50X, or whatever it is. Once they hit the exchanges, then he can go ahead and open a wallet and buy that stuff at retail.
Right.
And that's the travesty in this whole thing. I mean, I'm not saying that we don't need to go out and watch people who just either aren't educated enough or, familiar enough. It isn't educated, it's familiar enough with it. I'm not saying that we don't want to give those guys some guidelines or whatever. But to go in and drop the hammer on this, and the G20 is coming up in July, and I will tell you, Bruce, Brent will talk about it tomorrow. There's word out there is that they're going to come in and the U.S. is going to try to strong arm the rest of the G20 nations into, basically over-regulating cryptos. And the cat's out of the bag, man. I mean, they're not going to be able to stop it.
Well, just on a different spin of the same coin, I've been creating technology literally around the world since I could crawl probably, but I created some very powerful technologies here in Louisville, Kentucky, and all I've witnessed over the last, I'm 51 years old, over the last 50 years, is brain drain out of Louisville, Kentucky. As soon as any technology company gets any kind of traction, they're stolen from, Austin, or San Francisco, New York, Boston, Chicago even, down to Florida, about all the big companies or the hot areas or the hot VCs. They suck them out of Kentucky, and I've watched that my entire life because Kentucky just doesn't seem to, want to invest or hasn't been investing in knowledge-based companies yet, but it's turning around, and we're helping to turn that around. That's the same problem with the United States. And China had the lock on ICOs there for a while, and they blocked them, and then all of a sudden, overnight, Japan got all of them from China, and then all of them from around the world, and everybody is flocking over into that part of the world. And they're moving their whole lives there. They're moving their family. They're moving hundreds and thousands of technology people there, and it's just a brain drain from the United States. And we need to fix that.
You bet, absolutely. And I tell you, I mean, that's where, not that everybody here isn't busy, but, sitting around this table, I'm probably the oldest guy here. I'm an old man. And I do the.
All right, let's get to the licenses. No.
Let me tell you something. These gray-haired guys here, I'm the no-haired guy. But you take that passion that you've got and don't only share it with the choir because we all know it. And I know most people here, they're talking to everybody they know. There isn't a person that I run into that I don't say, do you know what Bitcoin is? And it is this, I tell two people and they tell two people, and that is how we'll make a difference. And what I'm loving about what y'all are doing here in Kentucky, and you see the smart states, Wyoming, and there's a few others doing it. You see the smart states going out there saying, you know what, we're going to grab a hold of this thing and embrace it because there's an opportunity for us to run. And it will affect what is going on East Coast and West Coast in this country, But if we're not proactive in doing it, then they'll steamroll us,
Yeah, I think, it's going back to an earlier point you were talking about, I think we have to at least acknowledge some of the regulators, I think, are well-intentioned, let's say, and maybe not all of them, but let's assume, give them the benefit of the doubt, that in a lot of cases they are really trying to put regulations in to protect consumers and things. The great thing is a lot of this technology today, a lot of that's built in, right? So you don't need, we have money transmitter laws because, you used to give a guy a big bag of cash and he got on a horse and drove across a couple of states and delivered it somewhere, whatever.
I'll tell you, you ride a horse, you don't drive it.
That's true. So the laws don't necessarily today.
Wait, no, this is Louisville, Kentucky. This is a Ford state, so Mustang you drive.
Yeah, that's true. That's good point. But the point is, I think we can help educate potentially some regulators as to, okay, how do those risks that used to be present, 100 years ago, we've alleviated those with some technical things, right? So maybe we need to focus on other areas, other things we can regulate differently or, better ways. But don't worry about some of the things that we've already solved, some of these problems.
Interestingly, and I reach out to a bunch of them. I've got probably a dozen SEC attorneys that I correspond with on a regular basis. And, and I'm picking their brains and I pull them on the radio show because I want to know where their head is and what they're thinking and the things that they're doing. And I'm very, very proactive in this space where I'll give anybody a platform, pro or con, in the thing, because I want to debate them, Right. And then if you're able to turn a person just a little bit who maybe has their head stuck in the sand in the things that they're doing, it's the turning of the aircraft carrier. And I candidly, and I'll tell you, Brent, my partner's going to tell you that he doesn't think it's going to happen. He thinks they're going to regulate us into a third world country. And I don't believe that'll be the case. I think that there's enough people that are pro, understand what's going on. Now, I will tell you, my son's scouting Puerto Rico for me right now because I'm launching the crypto. And when that happens, I may be centered out of Puerto Rico when I do it, just so that I'm not oppressed by the things that are going here. But, we're having to look at that at this stage of the game, and we're going to be fully compliant. I just don't want them to come in because the money grab, and all of a sudden they go in Congress literally with a gavel. We see them shut things down all the time, and, it is a concern,
Yeah.
So.
No, I think this kind of geographic, regulatory arbitrage opportunity is still very real. I think we need to make sure people understand that because, You know, I mean, there's a reason Jen's in Antigua, and it's not just because they have great, you know, beaches and stuff, right? And that doesn't hurt, right? But you know, it's the same thing. I mean, I spend a lot of time in Asia, and you know, I've been a couple times at the like the Bangkok Bitcoin meetup, and it's amazing. There's like all these young entrepreneurial guys from all over the world, right, have come there, and because it's welcoming, and they're building their businesses and giving people jobs, and you know, we can capture that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you bet. I'll tell you, we interviewed a guy by the name of John Corey. He's from the UK, and he's on a show about 6 weeks ago, and in the banking industry for many years. Left the banking industry in 1995 and decided to get in the internet industry. And he was a little bit of an early adopter in there and kind of lost his butt in the deal, so he got back into banking. He's now a consultant. You know, I was talking to, he was jazzing it up with us. We told him we'd make him an honorary Texan and send him a cowboy hat. But he was telling us, he said, let me tell you something. He said, if the U.S. doesn't get off their duff and do some smart things in this cryptocurrency space, he said the UK is going to be the epicenter of finance in this world again. And I'll tell you, there's a bunch of, we got Brits that are sitting around in here that we're talking to, and I'll tell you, they're being proactive in the things they're doing. You know?
Yeah, we'll have one of them talking, keynoting tomorrow, and just to throw somewhat of a teaser out there to get people to tune in tomorrow. What Enrique and I are working on is a really unique way that will get really detailed on how to properly articulate corporate governance around what transpires from a crypto company, and how to properly view every transaction that comes out of it compared to what they told the world they were going to do with those tokens. I'm not going to call them money. I'm just going to say tokens. You know, how you're going to use those tokens to benefit your ecosystem, and not to give away the secrets for tomorrow, but if you want to try to dance around it a bit, just to tease them to tune in tomorrow, we'll see what we can do there.
Oh yeah, with these companies that want to, track where their tokens are going, when they're allocating these tokens. We've worked with Andrew and Convergence to, really audit the blockchain and, write reports and different things to just verify that those tokens are where they say they're going to be.
Let's not give away too much of the secret sauce, too. Let's save that till tomorrow. We're going to tease them just slightly. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, though, is we need intelligent companies that understand the blockchain, understand the community around it, understand how to protect the common, not the common people, but the people that don't fully understand what's going on with it, how to really articulate things to them to say what you were told is going to happen is going to happen. Now, I actually went, and I'm probably giving a little away with the secret sauce, I went to the Big Four. And the Big Four put some big price tags on the table that didn't scare me, but they didn't put the how to do it correctly on the table. Right. And that's the thing that we've got to, show off, that we think we've come up with a couple good solutions that's blockchain friendly and really complies with corporate, proper corporate governance, and that's going to be a big theme tomorrow. Yeah. So let's get back to
Kentucky. We can actually have investor protections without the government doing it. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much, exactly. I mean, the community. That's one thing that, like Brock Pierce and Crystal, all that say. It's like the blockchain is a permanent record. Like back in school when they said you got a permanent record, now you do, and the rest of the world gets to watch it. So
that's right.
If you want to get a few more words in there edgewise, we've got about 3 more minutes to wrap this up, Enrique.
I'll let Scholar take it tomorrow. Do you have a question?
Oh yeah, let's get to some questions. We got like 3 minutes here to wrap this. Oh no, we don't. I'm sorry. We got 10 minutes to wrap this up. It's not.
Which,
all right.
30.
Yeah. So anyway, let's go for a few questions, and we can still talk a little bit. You got a question there? Anybody? Oh.
Yeah.
I talk too much anyway.
That's all right.
Yeah, so my question was one that I get not often, but it's been coming around more and more because we're scared, not scared, but regulations coming, and how is it going to be regulated? Europe is kind of taking the angle of self-regulation, so they're leaving it more in the crypto community's hands to self-regulate properly. Do you think that's a possibility in the United States with our regulatory bodies now? Do you think that's something that they would be apt for, or is that wishful thinking?
Actually, and I'm going to jump in here. I think that, and it's incumbent upon everybody in this room and everybody that's promoting this, I think it's incumbent upon us to self-regulate. Because if we don't do that, they talk about honor amongst thieves. Let me tell you something, honor amongst people that are in this crypto space, and if you see somebody that is doing something nefarious or something they shouldn't be, I can tell you I'm going to be the first one to call them out on it. And if we universally do that, then we'll be able to mitigate a whole lot of the potential of, the legislators coming in here and doing that. So I think so, and I think we're seeing it more and more,
Yeah.
Yeah, the industry really wants to self-regulate and really is putting transparency out there and trying to lay the guidelines and then set ways for the world to be able to track what's going on. And if you can track everything that happens and everything that happens, is above board, then there shouldn't be any issues.
Let me follow that up.
Oh.
Let me follow that up with the idea of privacy coins and how that kind of allows a backdoor for some people who choose to go that route to kind of avoid over-regulation. Do you think that is a factor that regulatory bodies are looking at? There's ways now where people can trade money. They talk about anti-money laundering, and they're trying to track that, and you can still audit certain blockchains without having that transaction history behind it. So how do you think that's going to affect how our regulators look at how they're going to regulate the ecosystem?
I'll give it a bit of a shot there. I mean, for one thing, it's just like somebody mentioned with AI earlier today. It's like a technology that can't be uninvented, right? So I mean, it's here and it's going to continue to grow. So it's going to change a lot of things, right? It's all this entire space is going to change the power dynamics in ways that none of us can fully predict or maybe appreciate yet. So, and I don't know, what that's going to look like, but there's no question in my mind that just the very existence of privacy coins and things like that eventually it's going to have to change the way we think of taxation and things, right? In the way governments function, all kinds of interesting things. So you're better off at least understanding it and, from a government point of view, regulator point of view, at least understand what you're facing and start thinking about, what your reaction is to that, as opposed to just trying to look the other way. Or I just don't think there's any way to kill it. So.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what they do about that, because how the privacy coins work, being able to shield your transactions and not knowing who sent what, like Bitcoin being a public ledger, there's ways to track where money went, with things like chain analysis and things like that. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see, how it kind of plays out with privacy coins. Are they going to be able to do anything with it? Like ban privacy coins? Probably not. It's a blockchain. It's a global thing. They may be able to mess with the on and off ramps, the exchanges, but now we have decentralized exchanges where, as long as you have a wallet, you can get on and trade these coins. So I think that's going to be very interesting to see how that plays off. And just going to your question beforehand, as far as like self-regulation, I think that's going to be very interesting as well to see how it plays off, because one could say in 2017, we kind of gave that a try and we've seen a lot of scams, pump and dumps, things like that. So us as the community and the entrepreneurs and the startups and the people in the space that are actually making these projects, we're really going to have to be responsible and really do a good job self-regulating, because one could say that the U.S. government could come down with that, their hammer, because we can't do that responsibly or effectively, and they don't really want to leave it up to us to self-regulate.
And to Drew's point earlier, I think we all have to be a little I was a little reluctant early on, like with things like BitConnect or whatever to, I mean, you know, you look at it as like, okay, that's a scam, but I don't want to say it because I don't want to get sued or whatever, or I don't, you know. And now I think we just have to be more active in saying, okay, that just doesn't make any sense, right? That you don't need to be putting your money in there, and you don't, you know, you need to avoid those kind of total scam operations. And you know, as an industry, we gotta step up and call that kind of stuff out. I think.
Well, true, but I mean, if you look at it a little bit different way, the government can't currently track me coming to your house and handing you a briefcase full of $100 bills, or a truckload full of $100 bills, or a truckload of diamonds. What they're interested in that in the money laundering side. That is an issue that exists on every kind of medium out there. There's people that do that with high-end paintings and that sort of thing. But with that, the things that they can regulate now with cash, they can regulate that with credit cards, they can do that with the blockchain as well. Any business that's on the blockchain, pay your taxes.
You bet.
That's the things that we need to do. If you look at it as a form of cash, you know, it's as unregulatable as me bringing a truckload of cash to your house. Now, if a police pulls you over, he's going to find the cash. He pulls you over with $5 billion worth of Bitcoin in your wallet, how's he going to find it? No, it is a little different there. But, and there is issues there, and with any kind of technology out there, there's always bad actors. We just have to invent new ways to track them down and stop that.
Yeah, and I will tell you, heavy regulation, let's talk about the banking industry for a minute. I mean, as heavy as that is regulated, they also have the keys to the vault. And it seems to me that there's a bank out there that uses a Stagecoach as a logo, and I'm not going to call which one it is, but you know, y'all may be able to figure that. But they just decided that they're going to open a few million accounts, and they're heavily regulated. So tell me there isn't fraud in about everything.
I mean, HSBC is a bigger money launderer than any Bitcoin person ever, right? And so,
They're straight up criminals.
and nobody went to jail for that.
Yeah.
They got fined a little slap on the wrist. Yeah.
Well, exactly. So you get to decentralization, and that's something that I was explaining to somebody the other day that didn't know anything about this. Like, oh, well, there's all these scammers going on. I'm like, no, it's far more secure than that, because it's not one person not one little group of people that can manipulate what's going on and change it around and defraud people. It goes out onto the blockchain, and if you be able to track that right, nobody can hack it, nobody can change it. You know, every single thing that gets written to the blockchain is there permanently, and that can get audited and tracked the whole time. So there's ways to really circumvent most of the stuff that happens with dollar bills today. It's safer.
You know what, and I'm sure everybody here has done this, but it's more of the things that we're doing in the visual part of our show. And that is, you know, when I moved money from Binance to GDAX the other day, I mean, it tells you in there that once 30 people have confirmed that this is a valid transaction, then the transaction takes place. And it happens pretty quickly, right? But I can tell you, I can walk into the bank and a teller in there can go in, and that person has the authority to make a decision based on my account autonomously.
Oh,
you know?
We opened up an international account with a international bank from a nice local bank that we have. Took them 10 days to open the account. When they finally got it open, I was out in California. We deposited company funds from our company account into that company account. And 10 days later, 10 normal days, not business days, normal days later, still didn't have access to my funds, but the number one day I deposited, that night they took it out of the Kentucky account. So I didn't have it on either side.
You bet. Yeah.
Somebody can send Bitcoin, $100,000, $1 million around the world, a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have two questions. The first question, I think it's really great what you guys are doing for your local communities. I'm just curious, like the people that are negative on blockchain, what's their typical pushback? I'm just curious to hear, like, you know, what are most people who aren't involved, what are they worried about?
I can tell you that, and it's the news from people that I talk to routinely. And it's, the news has people scared because they talk about fraud. There's no facts or anything behind what they're doing. And so typical fear is caused by ignorance, you know? And I can tell you, old gray-haired guys that I talked to in Kerrville, Texas, it's a huge retirement outfit. And we go in, we started doing a monthly, you know, open table where we call it Cryptos and Coffee, where folks can come in and we'll talk to them anything about it. And when they find out, and I'm talking about a bunch of retired law enforcement, FBI and DEA and all these guys that came in there against this illegal, nefarious cryptocurrency. And then when you explain to them and you show them how it actually works, I've actually got most of them invested now, you know, so it's ignorance. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or you've got, well, my wife says that it's only used for illegal stuff like the dark web and assassinations and drug dealings and all of that. And I'm like, I guarantee you that more of that's happened with cash than anything else.
Yeah, I know for us it's the kind of the ignorance factor as well. I know a lot of people like to just watch the big media outlets to get their news about crypto, which 9 times out of 10 they're probably saying the bottom fallout or the Bitcoin bubble or whatever they want to label it as. A lot of them get their news from that, and then also just with the whole fraud factor as well, just the stigma Bitcoin had in the early days of, you know, the dark web and money laundering and those things, and people have a problem really seeing, and this was really intriguing to me, but what it's backed by. And then when you ask them what the US dollar is backed by, you know, they'll say gold, and then kind of go back and be like, oh, never mind, and then they're like, well, yeah, what is the US dollar backed by? It's our faith in the US government, the Federal Reserve, you know, and a lot of people just don't. Be surprised how many people don't know how money works and how money is.
That's right.
You know, and the monetary policy in the United States and all of these fiat currencies and central bank controlled currencies. Like it's amazing how many people just don't understand how that works. And then I had an interesting argument the other day from a client that came in, and his kind of argument was, okay, if the Federal Reserve starts to use blockchain and the US dollar is mostly a digital currency now anyway, you know, what if they just, you know, issue their own, you know, Fed coin or something, you know, what need for Bitcoin would there be? So that was an interesting, you know, debate that we kind of had. But those are, you know, a few of the reasons that we really see.
I think
We're running out of time, fellas. We're running out of time. So I think one of the main points there is that crypto has a PR problem. Kentucky's trying to fix it.
That's true.
Puerto Rico is definitely doing a good job of fixing it. PR problem. Anyway, I was throwing Puerto Rico in there to help out.
Nice.
So thank you all very much. And, you know, here's to the, you know,
All right.
Kentucky Blockchain Association coming to be.